Welcome to Meldon Law and Friends. I'm Jeffrey Meldon, founder and attorney at Meldon Law. We handle all kinds of accident cases all throughout the state of Florida. And at Meldon Law and Friends, we like to bring people from the community on the air so that you can get to meet them and know what to do when you have a problem that their company or their service addresses. Today, we have Jen Sherman, who is with Restoration of, what is it? What's the name
Eagle
of the
Restoration of Marion County.
Yes. And so, Jen, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. I'm happy to be here.
And Jen and I have been talking a little bit about her background and how it led her into the restoration business. I understand, Jen, that you were a science microbiology teacher in an earlier life?
It was over 2 decades of teaching science, and that led me into wanting to do more to help people in the field of my restoration. And so, what it taught me, Jeffrey, was key point takeaways after over 2 decades in education was patience, and more patience. And I still love the kids, and I do some volunteer work still with them, so I get to see them, and now I'm helping people in a whole new way, which is really nice.
Well, that's great. You know, when we talk about restoration, this isn't like, building an addition to your home. This isn't building a new home. This is when you have water damage or other kind of fire damage or any kind of damage to your home, your business, or whatever. Restoration companies specialize in coming in, assessing what needs to be done, and finding out what remediation work needs to be done, right?
Absolutely. So we're anything that comes into mind, like water and fire damage, mold remediation, odor neutralization, sewage cleanup. We do it all for your everyday emergencies as well as after a storm or other natural disasters, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for both residential and commercial neighbors of ours.
And what markets do you service,
Well, we go basically anywhere within a 60-mile radius of southwest Ocala. So that's Ocala, Bellevue, the Villages, Crystal River, Denellen, Gainesville. And on occasion, we'll go to Mount Dora and other places.
Anything with less than an hour drive.
We're about
45-minute drive or so. And, I personally have had, property that I've owned that has had floods. And luckily, I knew somebody in the business and called them, and they rushed out and they brought all these fans and they sucked out the water, and they were like, "Oh, we got the mold detectors," and everybody's running around trying to figure out.
Right, it's a panic, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I try to, along with restoration, we work on connecting with our local businesses like realtors, property managers, appraisers, inspectors, on doing mini trainings basically on what indicators to look for in businesses or homes, on like if you have water intrusion or what to know, like moisture, temperature, things like that, because many times it's not so easy, and in a panic in this crisis situation, not everybody knows to call a restoration company and what's all involved.
Yeah, usually people, they might call the insurance company first, right? And then the insurance company. Sure. I don't know. Do you get referrals from insurance companies?
On occasion. One thing that I like to remind my my clients is that when you call your insurance company, it's important to, of course, call just to make sure that, if they need to file a claim, what the deductible is. A lot of people don't know any of this. They just know they're insured and everything's going to be great, right? But until that happens, now what do? So we're there with the customer to try to help guide and make sure they know what to do. And that those mini trainings I'm talking about for local businesses, anybody that really needs that, we all need that education because we're not born knowing what to do in those crisis situations, right?
Right.
So,
well, and it's, first of all, it's not my line of work. It's not my specialty. I don't know. The only thing I've learned is having the problem and having somebody swoop in like Superman and,
And you had a friend, right? So just because, like, a lot of people, of course, don't have that. So I recommend do your research, gather information, talk to your neighbors, talk to people, know when it is necessary, or call me and I'll tell you what I think as well. When it is necessary to gather, to have the information of a professional restoration company to come into a situation. Also, along with that, I recommend having a list of reputable contractors like an HVAC company, a plumber, an electrician on hand as well, with your preparedness list of things to do, like during an emergency.
Yeah, that's really good advice. How did you come up with the name Eagle Restoration?
Oh, well, my father-in-law had a great love for Eagle. Everything is always about eagles, and it's very strong and bold, and that I took away from him, like the eagle, that bold, strong, rising above, soaring above everything else, Yeah,
well, the eagle is, an incredible animal.
It is.
And we see them around Florida.
Yes, we do.
Now, are you from the Florida area originally?
Well, I was actually born in Brooklyn and raised in South Florida, and I moved to Ocala 8 years ago, and I love it. It's home.
Yeah, after living in South Florida, my daughter still lives in Miami.
Oh, boy.
And, we go down and visit, and we go, I can't wait to get back to North Central Florida because it is a much easier lifestyle, I think, up here.
Absolutely. I mean, back when I was a kid, there was, things were way different. But I love Ocala for that reason. It's much better, much calmer.
And so how do you market Eagle Restoration? What are some of the things that you're doing besides being on Meldon Law and Friends to get the word out so people know about your company? Because these things happen sometimes in the middle of the night, and people,
exactly.
Yeah, and people, we get storms. We're a little more protected than on the coast, but we still have a lot of rain and wind and things like that can do damage, and we don't have, we have slabs, and then all of a sudden the water starts coming in, and
absolutely,
it's a friggin' mess.
It really is. A lot of it right now has been a lot of word of mouth. The more people I come in contact with and the trainings that I do, I've gotten a lot of word of mouth referrals that way, and that's growing every day. It's just growing and growing. So I'm, knock on wood, blessed for that. Feel really positive about that.
Yeah, I know.
I do a lot of networking as well, meeting other local businesses.
I think, the restoration business in Florida probably has a good future because I don't think the rain's going to stop.
But we're here also, if, your dishwasher stops working and now you got the ice maker flood, and these things happen every day. The appliances, I've had a lot of that. Washing machines overflowing, toilets backing up. Nobody likes to talk about that one, but.
So let's get into how you come in and evaluate a situation and decide what treatment needs to be done. Because, it's one thing to get the water out, right?
Absolutely.
That may be step one,
That's a good point. So, well, first of all, it takes about 24 to 48 hours for microbial growth, as we say. Nobody likes to say the word mold to set in, but it's also bacteria and other things that can come along too. We have moisture detectors, certain tools that infrared thermal cameras, tools that can help paint the picture of what may be happening in a structure to help distinguish each unique situation and the pattern of treatment that we will apply to that.
Thermal cameras. I haven't heard that before.
Oh, I should have brought my toolbox.
Yeah, tell me about a thermal camera.
Well, it helps to, as long as it's used correctly, it can help to distinguish different temperature in rooms, right? So that way you can tell what is darker could be potentially moisture there, and you just have to use all the tools wisely and not rely on one specific thing to make that assumption.
But once you're able to see, an area that's darker, you go, this may be an area of concern.
Correct.
And I need to do, follow up on that to make sure.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes it's very obvious. You put your meter and you can sense there's moisture in a particular area, and that could indicate, there has been some intrusion of water, which then could potentially, it depends on how long it's been sitting too, whether or not there may be microbial growth, which is secondary damage. So it's important, as soon as you notice there is any kind of intrusion of water, to effectively get on that and make sure that is your responsibility as a homeowner to address it.
So
And
for those
fix it.
of you listening, if you have water damage, flooding in your home, the first thing you want to do is figure out, can you get rid of the water yourself? If not, then we have to call Eagle Restoration if it's a massive situation, right?
Along with what we talked about earlier with our preparedness kit, you'll want to know where your fire extinguishers are, as well as how to turn off the water main. Where is it
that's
located?
a big one, yeah. It's dark out, and
Right.
you need to turn off the water.
Correct.
And a lot of people don't know where their main water switch or control
Yes,
device is.
absolutely. It could be in the house. It could also be out front of the house, on the side of the house. And it depends. Sometimes in a mobile home, it could be in a wall. There's just different scenarios. So it's important to know that, so that if you can, in that crisis situation, if that happens, how to turn it off.
We hear a lot about mold, particularly in the state of Florida.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How what the dangers are, and how you detect it, and then how do you remedy it?
Sure. Of course, every unique situation can be somewhat different, but I'll give you the rundown. Many times people will say to me, "Oh, Jen, I'm just going to, knock it off. I'll take some bleach or vinegar and wipe it off, and it killed the mold." Well, it doesn't work that way. What happens is now you've gone ahead and put toxic fumes in the air, and you're taking off only a surface. So it's things that you can see on the outside. Fungi is very difficult because once it's there, depending upon the type and all, but mostly once it's on a certain materials that's very absorbing, it'll go and penetrate into the surface. And what it has is a really, really intrinsic root system called hyphae, which then connect together like this spreading roots, except it's called mycelium, that spread really, really fast, much more rapid than a plant. And you don't see it, so you think it's gone. And then one day doesn't always happen this way, but one day you could be looking up at the ceiling or something. Oh, what's that stuff? What is that? It looks like, and green, black, right? There's all different colors, but that could be definitely microbial growth, and then that happens more frequently than So I recommend for people to do certain things to help keep it at bay, right? So if you keep your humidity levels anywhere around, they say 40 to 60% relative humidity. I recommend closer to 50 if you can. Keep moisture at bay, like furniture, let circulation go. So don't clutter too much, and just move things out of the way so we have a good circulation, okay? But if there is mold found, because I didn't finish this part, what we do is we may have to, it depends, cut drywall, take out wet insulation. In those situations, it's now visible, right? So we can usually see it or detect it somehow. A really good way to prevent mold is prevent moisture, circulation, allow circulation of the air, keeping the humidity. You can buy a little tool called a hygrometer at Home Depot, any one of your local hardware stores, put it on the counter. Should be about between 40 to 60, but I like it closer to 50 or below if you can.
So this is the relative humidity.
Correct,
Now,
inside the home.
When you go outside the home where it's not air conditioned, your humidity can be 90-95%, right? In
Absolutely.
Florida.
It's very, very humid. Yes.
Right. However, we all have air conditioning, or most of us do. And
Right.
That's how the state of Florida grew, because of air conditioning.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for air conditioning, we'd have about a million people here instead of 23 million or whatever. So,
Right. And a lot of people, they travel, they have properties at their second homes, and it's really important. I just had a case in which that happened. Somebody has a second home, they kept their air up, and now it was a breeding ground basically for mold, and they have a lot of mold, and they have to remediate it now. So now they have to be out of their house for 2 weeks, roughly about 2 weeks, to get rid of a whole home full of mold.
yeah. For those of you listening and watching, if you've ever had this, flooding, it's a really, for us, sometimes we just think, mop it up, clean it up, bleach it, whatever. And what Jen is telling us is that there's a lot going on. And when mold invades your home, then what are some of the hazards that it creates?
Potentially, different types of mold have different properties. So there are many of them that do release mycotoxins, which have potential health hazards. Some are deadly, depending upon the person. We all have somewhat of a different, even though it's our own unique biome, which is the normal things that we have inside of us and our cells. And I don't want to get too much into science here, but I want to just say that it's depending upon the type of mold. That's why it's very important when you have mold, if you just try to remove it yourself, what you can do is sort of spook it. So it's been sitting a while, it's not really doing much, but it's sort of like dust. Once you have it and it moves and it gets what I call spooked, it moves like dust particles throughout the air. And remember, you're not really seeing some of these things, right? Because it's microscopic. But what it does, it settles eventually. And now all those mold spores and some of these things having mycotoxins spread to even a larger space. So if it's maybe contained in a small enough space and you have a professional remediation company coming in to take care of it, it won't necessarily spread, because they're trained, right, hopefully, in knowing how to contain it and how to prevent cross-contamination from one area to another.
Well, that's very important. And
Extremely.
I know mold can really cause some, serious illnesses.
Absolutely.
What are some, things, illnesses?
Oh, respiratory illnesses. I mean, there are plenty of stories that, we've probably all have heard of, but
Mold is, we hear about mold a lot, right?
Right. I mean, one of the most famous ones that most people know of is black mold. Stachybotrys is the scientific name of it. Black mold is just more popularized because what it did in some of the movies we've seen and some of the stories, there was a huge story in Texas, and that was back in, I think, 92. But it just led to people being frantic or afraid of black mold. But there's other molds too that are, equally, if not the same, or depending upon the mycotoxin and the type of how much is there, things like that will depend on how it's going to affect each and every individual person or animal.
Yeah, there's some people that are very sensitive to not only mold, but a lot of other conditions, right?
Absolutely.
And once you get in your home and, the air conditioner is kind of just circulating the air, and if it's bad air,
right.
I know a lot of people who just are not tolerant of mold at all, and that it really, they can wind up in the hospital. It can make them so sick.
I've gotten calls almost daily from people that say that they've been hospitalized and or sick and they can't live in their homes because of mold.
Well, I think that what you're doing is really important. So let's talk about the company, Eagle Restoration, okay, of Marion County. And what I want to do is, if people need your service, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is call 352-496-7949. And or you can email me or message me at Jen, Jen, at eaglerestorationfl.com. Jen at eaglerestorationfl.com. I am happy to answer any questions or help you in any way I can. If I can't get you the answers myself, I will work on it and make sure that I get back to you. And
well,
provide that.
It's just absolutely fascinating to me, having, gone through it. One of the things that I've done is, when something happens, number one, you were talking about there's a window like 24 to 48 hours, right?
Yes.
Where you want to get the professionals in.
Absolutely.
So there's a few takeaways from this. Make sure you know where your cutoff switch is for your water, because you might need to do that, okay? Make sure that you have your insurance information available. At Meldon Law, we don't specialize in restoration type situations. However, we know people that do, and we can get you somebody qualified if the insurance carrier is not treating you fairly. And we have, actually, there's public adjusters that help people out whenever the insurance company's giving them a short haircut on the what it really costs, because I imagine that comes into
Absolutely.
what you're doing. You've seen insurance companies, they go, oh, just patch it up and send them away, and we don't need the
Right.
To really do a scientific approach.
Absolutely. I've seen that time and time again. And one other thing is, yes, you want to call your insurance company, but it's also your responsibility to get a professional company, to take care of the damage, the primary damage, because what will happen if you wait over time, it's going to develop into secondary damage. And now the situation is way worse than it was when it started.
So make sure that you have Jen's number. Write it down, Eagle Restoration, and give us the number one more time, Jen.
Sure, 352-496-7949.
Great.
We're here 24 hours.
And look, the
day.
other thing is, if you think you have mold damage in your house, maybe you bought the house and somebody before you didn't repair it, and all of a sudden you're noticing, black or green or funkiness somewhere like that, call Jen, and she'll help you figure out what's the problem, whether it's covered by insurance. There are specialists that help. Like I said, I've used public even though I'm an attorney, when it comes to dealing with this restoration stuff, public adjusters charge like 10% or so, and they can really get the insurance company to give you a fair shake on the deal. That's, I guess, one of the most important messages that I have as an attorney is, in my own personal experience, I've had situations where there's been flooding, where there's been fires, where there's been problems that affect the livability of the property.
Correct.
And that's what we're talking about, livability and property. And Jen, with her scientific background at Eagle Restoration, is perfectly suited to come in like the sleuth, like the scientist, and figure out what's going on. And she's got the equipment necessary and the training necessary.
I was just going to add in one little thing before. So one of the wonderful stories that I have is a realtor that was selling the house, and there was mold in the attic. The inspector saw it, but they weren't sure exactly how to work with it. Well, I made it happen so that the seller everything was aligned, the insulation could be taken out, the mold could be treated. But wasn't going to happen like that. They were just going to like let it go and leave the insulation in there and spray some stuff at it and hope for the best. Now think about that. The insulation in an attic, if you don't see what's underneath, how are you going to know, right? It had to come out.
Right.
So luckily it went through. Everything was great, and it panned out just great in time for the sale.
In time for the sale. So that's careful. It's something important. When you're buying a home that's been lived in before, you don't know what's going on there. And it's really important to get a good home inspector out there.
Absolutely. I work with many, so.
Yeah, and Jen can turn you on to some, home inspectors if you're, selling a home or buy. I guess the buyer is primarily the one that would want the inspection. And I always, anytime I've bought a home, I've always looked for a really good inspector to go out there and tell me whether or not, there's some damage that I'm going to have to pay out of my own pocket, because after you close, you're pretty much tied to the home and you got to fix it.
Absolutely.
No matter what. So anyhow, Jen, I want to thank you very much. It's Eagle Restoration. Jen Sherman has been our guest today, and she's the owner of Eagle. And it's in services all of, I would say, north central Florida, primarily the Marion County area, and
the villages. We'll go to the village.
45 minutes or so around that. So thank you very much for joining us on Meldon Law and Friends, and we thank you for educating us
Absolutely.
about what to do in these situations that are not fun, but we
Absolutely.
need professionals like you. So thank you very much.
Thank
for
you,
joining
Jeffrey.
us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful visit, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. And we're going to be back in just a second with update on what the activities are going on in our community.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
I was going down a one-way street and a girl that was driving her car T-boned me on my scooter. I ended up going for an MRI and discovering that I had 2 herniated discs. Coming to Cary allowed me to not have to worry about what doctor I was going to see or what physical therapist I had to go to. They say, these are the people we trust. You're going to have a great experience there. And I honestly did each time.
Call Meldon Law. Your consultation is absolutely free.
And I was in an accident. Someone ran a red light and hit me, and I was hurt. You don't know where to turn. Luckily, I called Jeffrey. These big insurance companies, they don't want you to win. They truly don't. But Jeffrey and his firm and the people that work here, they just really fight for you. You call the law offices of Jeffrey Meldon, because you're going to need help, and they will help you.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Hey, Sammy, look who's there. Say hi.
Hey!
You again.
Meldon Law, Jeffrey speaking.
Jeffrey! Somebody else hit us here.
Here we go again. Welcome back to Meldon Law and Friends. I'm Jeffrey Meldon, founder and attorney at Meldon Law, where we help people put their lives back together after serious accidents. So give us a call, 352-373-8000, or go to meldonlaw.com. A couple things that we do have available for free is my book, Buying Florida Auto Insurance. Absolutely critical, because you need to buy uninsured motorist coverage, and my book explains why. In addition to that, I wrote a book called 7 Mistakes That Can Wreck your Florida accident case, which explains what not to do if you're in an accident, and it tells you what to do if you're in an accident. Both those books are free. You can get them by calling the office, 352-373-8000. You can also go to our website, meldonlaw.com, and right at the top of the homepage is a little button you can click and download a PDF version of our book. So we're here to help our community learn what to do before an accident and what to do after an accident. That's why I wrote the books. Anyhow, a bunch of things going on in the community throughout June. There's berry picking at the Deep Spring Farm in Alachua. Just Google Deep Spring Farm. For $10, you can enjoy organic blueberry picking and picnicking under the live oaks if you like. You get a whole big bucket of berries. So go on out. It's a lot of fun. Williston, Independence Day, 5 p.m. on July 3rd. It all kicks off at the Horseman's Park. They're hosting a parade beginning at 5, and then it goes right into the Independence Day celebration with fireworks, which begin at dark. So check it out, Williston Independence Day celebration. The World Equestrian Center is having world-class hunter jumpers and equestrian competitors at the World Equestrian Center in Ocala. If you haven't been there, it's fabulous. You got to check it out. It's running until August 10th, so check out their schedule. The family will love it out there. Just walking around the grounds is amazing. I call it the Disney World for horse people. So you'll love it, and I have friends out there, and we really like working with the World Equestrian Center. Tioga Concert Night in Gainesville, June 28th. Town of Tioga is having an outdoor concert. I've been out there for a lot of them, and they're fun. This concert is June 28th, and Houston King, K-E-E-N, is the featured performer. Bring your lawn chairs, blankets. It starts 7 o'clock and it goes to 10. It's free and open to the public. And Houston King is an alternative country artist, and he has a fan base all over the state of Florida. So let's check it out. Let's support our local activities. They're fun. They make North Central Florida special, and really a wonderful place to live. We're going to call it a wrap on Meldon Law and Friends this week, but we'll see you next week, and thank you very much for viewing and listening.